So here's a new book out by evangelical apologist Natasha Crane. The title is When Culture Hates You, Persevering for the Common Good as Christians in a Hostile Public Square. And then the book is complemented by a verse proof texted from Jesus. If the world hates you, know that it has hated me before it hated you. Let's talk about this. I know that rhetoric so well. I was raised in that rhetoric. I was raised in the idea that if you are a true faithful disciple of Jesus, then people outside the church will hate you. And the validity of your witness will be evidenced by the very fact that people hate you. If you think about it, can you imagine what a harmful understanding of Christian discipleship that is? To think that the very evidence that you are faithfully following Jesus is that you repel people who are not themselves Christians. The first thing I want to say two or three things about this whole idea. The first one is that this kind of rhetoric and this paradigm of thought fails to distinguish fundamentally between people who quote unquote hate you or just more less tendentiously are frustrated or angry with you because you are being faithful versus because you are being unfaithful. Let me give you an example. So, an evangelical might say, well, people hate me because I'm pro-life. But by pro-life, what they really mean is they support the life of fetuses in utero. However, that same individual might be very pro-gun. They might shoot their AR-15 at the gun range every weekend. They may support without any reservation Israel's actions in Gaza since October 2023, which have resulted in the death of more than 46,000 civilians. They may use without apology Trump's anti immigrant rhetoric, such as when he talked about immigrants eating dogs and cats, or when he talks about people who are refugees or who lack status living within the United States as being, quote, illegals and referring to their children as anchor babies. This individual might cheer when they see law-abiding people without status being arrested and placed in handcuffs and then deported uh, in a military aircraft to a country in Latin America while their family cries and wails at the loss of their beloved father and husband. And then they'll say, you hate me because I'm so faithful in proclaiming that I'm pro-life. No. First of all, maybe the person doesn't hate you, but maybe they're deeply angry and appalled at your hypocrisy that you say you're pro-life, but you restrict what it is to be pro-life to the fetus in utero. So in that case, to say that you're hated because of your faithfulness, no, it may be that you're hated because of your limited moral vision or your moral hypocrisy. And the failure to distinguish between those two completely different things be fatal to the faithfulness of your Christian witness. The second thing I would want to point out here is that this whole appropriation of binary language that Jesus uses in the Gospel of John. He will distinguish between people of truth and people of the lie, and sheep and goats, and disciples versus the world. If you're not cautious, you could completely distort that understanding. One way to see this is you have to understand people like Natasha Crane, when they cite the words of Jesus talking about how the world will hate you, what they think by the world is people outside of our religious community. That is the world for them. But if you read the Gospels, you will see time and again that that's not correct. The world, those who are unfaithful, those who are actually hating on Jesus and his faithful followers, are people within the religious communities. The people described as Pharisees, as scribes and teachers of the law. Those are the people that Jesus is regularly coming into confrontation with. By contrast, the people that Jesus welcomes and the people that love him are people who are outsiders. The woman caught in adultery, the woman of Cana, the leper, the tax collector, the Roman centurion, the Gentile, the blind person who was viewed as being born with the sin of his fathers, and on and on and on. It is the outsiders looking in who Jesus welcomes and embraces, and who in return love him and are drawn to him. And it is the religious insiders who are the world, who are outsiders, who in fact hate Jesus and his faithful followers. And this is completely lost on somebody like Natasha Crane, who uses the language of the world to talk about the drag queen, for example, and the faithful Christian to talk about as the person who's outraged by drag queen story hour. And that's their simplistic paradigm of how to understand the world, and then how to confirm their own quote unquote faithfulness by the fact that people are angered at them and repelled by them, and often the limited moral vision and hypocrisy of their witness. What happens then, the truth is that Jesus and the faithful disciple of Jesus draws people, is attractional. He is the one who has outsiders coming to him. The church today, the evangelical church today, for the most part, is the exact opposite. It repels people who are not already part of that belief community. And for those people within the community, it validates them and their own sense of their witness by saying, because people hate you and are repelled by you, you are faithful to me. When in fact, very often, the exact opposite is the case. And that is the fateful and terrible result of completely failing to understand the language of Jesus and turning the hatred and revulsion of other people and the alienation of other people into a validation of the faithfulness of your witness.